Know the source. Find out why the source of the gospel matters in this episode of 5 Minutes Closer. I'm Vaughn Weatherford, and this is 5 Minutes Closer. For the next 5 minutes, let's explore some biblical truths and apply them to your life. No podcast, including this one, can transform your life or give you what you really need. Only Jesus can do that. You can find out why in what I've called the first five episodes of 5 Minutes Closer. Each following episode explores scriptural truths that, if you follow them, will bring you 5 minutes closer to the person God created you to be. Let's see if we can get you 5 minutes closer. I'm not an experienced traveler, but I remember one word of advice. Know the source of your water. When you're thirsty, you'll drink whatever's offered, but in some countries, only bottled water is safe. Just ask anyone who forgot. They had a vacation to remember for all the wrong reasons. Knowing the source matters, and not just for water. Paul opens Galatians by making clear the source of the gospel and why it's important. In Galatians chapter 1, beginning with verse 10, Paul writes, "For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. For I would have you know, brothers, that the gospel that was preached by me is not man's gospel. For I did not receive it from any man, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ." Paul wrote his letter to the Galatians in part to refute accusations by some false teachers who sought to discredit the gospel message. One claim was that Paul was preaching the gospel for his own benefit. Paul counters those claims in verse 10. He wasn't preaching to gain applause from men, which should have been obvious. If he was trying to please men, why would he still be preaching about Christ? He'd been thrown out of nearly every town he'd ever visited because of preaching the gospel. If he was trying to play politics, he certainly wasn't doing a very good job. But the fact was, he wasn't trying to be popular. He sought to proclaim the truth. Paul didn't proclaim a message from men. The gospel he proclaimed came from God. Paul received a revelation from God. This sounds strange to our modern ears, and it probably sounded strange to their ancient ears too. In fact, it has sounded strange to Paul. That's why, as Saul, he'd gone around persecuting Christians. He didn't believe they had a message from God either. Then Paul met the Lord. Everything changed on the Damascus Road. He was no longer trying to fulfill religious law or to rely on his own strength to be right with God. Paul realized Jesus accomplished salvation as a gift of grace. Meeting the author of the gospel message changed everything. When I was a kid, I fell on the playground one time. It wasn't a major injury, just a minor scratch, but there was blood. I looked around and saw about 15 different moms. They weren't who I wanted. They weren't who I needed. I needed my mom, which is probably why I screamed out, "Mom!" Amazingly, those 15 other moms didn't come running. My mom did. She whipped out her first aid supply of Bactine and Band-Aids, and I was back on the merry-go-round in no time. In truth, those other moms probably could have helped me, but they were too busy watching their kids to do anything for me. Paul realized an important truth that the Galatians and we need to understand. There's only one who can do what we need. Jesus alone can provide forgiveness and everlasting life. Jesus has provided the way. As Paul writes later in Galatians in chapter 2, verse 20, "The life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me." God sent his Son to die on the cross for us, so that by faith we might have life in him. That's straight from the source of all life. The gospel truth is that you can know the source, the one who gives all life. And now, you're 5 minutes closer. My prayer is that these 5 minutes have challenged you, inspired you, and caused you to consider applying God's message for your life from His Word. To find out more, visit our website at 5minutescloser.com. Join me next time to see if we can get you 5 minutes closer.